Like, don't you think I could be the greatest sports journalist ever?
Mm-hmm. Just give you a chance. You in Minnesota.
It is another week of the Lachelle Show, and I am Lachelle Smith. This week's episode is special because it's going to be only about the NBA playoffs. If you were coming here to hear me talk about the NFL draft, my winners and losers, come back next week. I promise you I will be talking more in depth about some of the picks that I thought were really good for a lot of teams. But this week's episode is all about basketball, and it's all about round one of the playoffs. I'm going to be telling you my biggest winners and losers so far in the playoffs, some of my analysis of what I'm seeing in some of these matchups, my predictions going into the next round of the conference semifinals, and what certain teams might need to do to be able to get over the hump in the future. So let's get ready for this episode. But because you guys listened to me last week, we gotta open up the hotline.
Man, can we talk about how the King still got it? He said, don't count him out. I'm watching the playoffs right now, and they counted LA out.
Watching LeBron James in Game 3 had to be one of the best moments watching him. And there's been a lot of great moments watching Bron, but I think collectively, that game was over. You look back at Game 3, we're talking about the Houston Rockets are up by 6 with less than 30 seconds left in the game. All you have to do is not make any mistakes. Prior to the quick run that the Lakers went on, LeBron had a turnover with a bad pass that led to a steal and a score from the Houston Rockets. And I just did not expect, one, for them to have multiple defensive stops in less than 30 seconds. You have Bron who gets the back tap steal on Reed Shepherd, then runs. He almost bobbles when he's about to shoot, passes it to Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard, who had been struggling in this game, but one of the best shooters, three-point shooters especially on the Lakers, gives it back to LeBron. And everybody knows if a player, teammate gives it back to you, you got to go ahead and shoot it. They're telling you it's yours. Bron, as we all know, has struggled at times, shooting his threes. So when he pump fake, set his feet, I said, ooh, he might got one in him. Cash, straight net, money. I said, you got to be kidding me. One of the best moments watching LeBron James at 41 year 23. I have told you guys a few weeks ago how I felt how the Lakers have been trying to prove that they could go through another phase without him, almost pushing him out, and that this series was going to have to prove again why he is LeBron James, why he is still him, and he is doing that in this series. And in Game 3, he showed that again. And since we're talking about the Lakers, we might as well get right into the NBA playoffs. We're going to stay on the Western Conference side, and let's talk about the Lakers-Rockets series. The Los Angeles Lakers are leading the series against the Houston Rockets 3-1. We just previously talked about Game 3, the crazy moment, under 30 seconds comeback by the Lakers, and they end up winning in overtime, which had them at 3-0 prior to us having Game 4. Game 4, elimination game, you expect that the opposing team does not want to get swept. A lot of teams just do not want to have that on their record for that season, that they got swept in the first round. They would rather a gentleman's sweep. 4-1 is a little bit easier to digest than a 4-0. So I expected that the Houston Rockets were going to come out with a lot of energy and a lot of pride. And it's funny because in Game 3, I said that I thought that that was the best that they had played throughout the playoffs. And the fact that they gave that game away, it kind of to me sealed the series. But I still expected that they were going to come out, play hard in Game 4. That was just an emotional game, hard-fought game. I expected the Lakers were going to come out a little bit low effort, lackadaisical. They did exactly that. If you're the Houston Rockets, you responded how you were supposed to respond. But the thing that I understand about the Houston Rockets, and I've said this before, they're just not a smart basketball team. And I don't have a lot of faith that they could be able to play like that again 3 more times. I just don't see it. It's hard for me to imagine that they can, especially without Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has pretty much not been available this entire series. He was only available Game 2, and they still lost that game. Game 1, he was out with a right knee injury. Game 2, he was available. Game 3, he then was out again with a left ankle sprain that they then said was a bone bruise. He was getting around-the-clock treatment during Game 3 and then was out for game 4. They are now going to go back to LA for game 5. It does not look like he will be available, but that could change, especially now that they finally have won a game and the series is 3-1 and you feel like the momentum is back on the Houston Rockets side. It's not. The momentum is not on the Rockets side. I'm not being a Debbie Downer. They did what they were supposed to do. You don't want to get swept. It's just that simple. But if you've watched playoff series before where things like this happen, the elimination game, which is the hardest one to win because no team wants to go home, most of the time they play well in game 4 because they want to avoid the sweep. They get to game 5 and they go back to playing how they did the other few games that they lost. And I expect that to be the same thing with the Houston Rockets. But I will give them a ton of credit in this game 4 because, again, they responded how they were supposed to respond. I thought Amin Thompson played great. Şengün played great. I thought Jabari Smith Jr. was aggressive. Reed Shepherd, who was getting flamed in the media, even by his own teammates, that he was a bad defender. He had defensive presence. He was aggressive. He was diving on the floor. He was responding with his shots. That young team is trying to make sure that they don't go down without a fight, and you have to respect that. I thought Ime Udoka took a lot of adjustments from what he has seen throughout this series and allowed them to play a little bit more free in game 4. It looked like the Houston Rockets that we've seen throughout the season. They were aggressive on defense. That's their identity. And when they are able to cause turnovers, which they caused a ton of turnovers against the Los Angeles Lakers in game 4. I mean, LeBron had 8 turnovers just by himself. He had 10 points. LeBron played bad in game 4, something that I expected because game 3 was so emotional and it was such a long game, especially once you are going to overtime. But overall, they had over 23 turnovers in this game that the Houston Rockets caused. You're not going to win many games with 23 turnovers. It's just not going to work. Now, they did shoot the ball fairly well. The Lakers shot 50% from the field, and the Houston Rockets shot 48% from the field. From the three-point percentages where the Rockets really won this game, 40% to the Lakers, 22%. And again, they just struggled. A lot of foul calls were being called. DeAndre Ayton got ejected. They were just doing a lot. So the game was already in Houston Rockets' favor. They were in control of this game from the opening tip, and they did exactly what you are supposed to do in that position. So I am happy for the Houston Rockets. No one wants to get swept, you know? Again, got to show some pride. Got to make sure that you're showing that, hey, this series hasn't worked in our favor. One game at a time. They win game 4. You go back to LA. But it is hard if you're the Rockets because you understand that if you would have won game 3 and then came out in game 4 with the intensity that you had, this is a tie series right now. It's 2-2 going back to LA. That's just not the case, though, because you let one get away. And those small margins of victories are so important in the playoffs. It's easy to say, oh, they could come back. Well, no, it's a little bit harder. It's still an uphill battle. No one's going to take this series unless you're about to win game 5. And I expect that the Lakers would be more aggressive. Austin Reeves might be made available for that game, but they know exactly what they got to do. Clean up the turnovers, go back to playing with DeAndre Ayton, Jackson Hayes. They were getting a lot of great looks in the paint before DeAndre Ayton got ejected for a flagrant foul too. And then get back to their defensive presence that they were having in the passing lanes, causing turnovers. So I expect that the Lakers will make their adjustments. They'll be fine. But for the Houston Rockets, can you string together 3 more wins? That's a tall task. My prediction is that they will not be able to. I do believe that this series is over. Game 5 in Los Angeles. But if the Rockets could pull that off, kudos to them. I would love to see it. We always love a hard-fought series. But since I already said that I believe that the Lakers will be advancing to the next round of the playoffs, which is the conference semifinals, we might as well talk about who they will be facing. And that is going to be the OKC Thunder. And they are right now in the series with the Phoenix Suns. The Oklahoma City Thunder are leading the series against the Phoenix Suns 3-0. And by the time that you're listening to this, game 4 most likely has already happened or is about to happen. And I'm going to tell you my prediction is that this is a sweep, that the OKC Thunder will be 4-0 and heading to the conference semifinals where they will await the Los Angeles Lakers. The OKC Thunder, what they're doing in round 1 is what you expect from a defending champ. You don't expect to see any stagnation from them, any complacency. Don't play with your food. In the series, rest and recovery is important for them. But I will say this. There are little weaknesses still to the OKC Thunder, and I think the biggest thing for them is shooting slumps. It's something that if you've paid attention to throughout the season, they've struggled with at times. This is not me saying that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can be stopped and all of that. No. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when they play teams that have a little bit more size, have a little bit more defensive discipline, he struggles a little bit to be able to be efficient and get his shots. But he's about to be a 2-time MVP, and he doesn't look like he's slowing down anywhere in this series right now. In game 3, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander dropped 42 points. 42 points on 15-18 shooting. That means for the entire game, he only missed 3 shots. For 38 minutes, he only missed 3 shots. Now, the OKC Thunder are dealing with some injuries, and that one main injury is that J-Dub, Jalen Williams, is not out there right now. He ended up getting injured earlier in the series. He also has kind of dealt with a few injuries already throughout the season and has been in and out. And for the run that the OKC Thunder are trying to make, the defending champs, you're trying to go back to back, he is so important for them, and he has to be healthy for the run. So you hope that, hey, we could go ahead, get this sweep, get more rest and recovery, and by the time we get to the next round, he'll be available or a little bit closer to his availability. But the one thing that the OKC Thunder have that not a lot of teams in this playoff have is a lot of help from their bench. They have so many guys that can give you points. Chet Holmgren had 10 points in this game, but when you really look at all the stats, it's AJ Mitchell who had 15 and stood out really big for them. Alex Caruso had 13. When you get 7 points for Jared McCain, Cason Wallace had 6 points. All those things add up, and you need that collectively, especially when your star is going to go out there and drop 42 points. He's did most of the work for you. All you have to do is be able to have a few guys who could be in double digits, and they did exactly that. When I'm looking at the stats for the Phoenix Suns and the Oklahoma City Thunder, the field goal percentage is not that far off. OKC shot 49% from the field. Phoenix shot 43% from the field. From 3, they were pretty much even at 32% and 31%. There wasn't a big gap over all the things that the Phoenix Suns were really able to do. The turnovers, the margin's really small for them. 11 turnovers to the Thunder's 7. Now, the thing about the Phoenix Suns that I'm worried about is that you got to have Devin Booker involved in this series. Without him, they will not be able to extend this to a game 5. Dillon Brooks has showed up. He had 33 points in game 3. Jalen Green had 26 points in game 3. Devin Booker had 16 points. And I said this recently that I think Devin Booker is now facilitating more than he is being aggressive. And I think that is something that the Phoenix Suns have kind of put him in the role as for the last 2 years of more like a point guard instead of his natural position, which is shooting guard. And I do believe that for the Phoenix Suns to have any success, even with Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green, Devin Booker has to be the guy. He has to be aggressive. And you can tell at times he is relenting that position instead of allowing himself to be the guy. I will say this, when you're watching these games, the reason I think Devin Booker is a little bit less aggressive is because the game plan is to stop him. I know everyone wants to say he fell off and he's regressed. I don't think Devin Booker has regressed. He's just in a different position right now, and he has to decide what he wants to be, especially in this guard position and how this offense is going to be run. The OKC Thunder have talked extensively that, hey, he's the guy. You have to stop him. He's the scorer. So naturally, if you are putting all your attention onto Devin Booker, the primary scorer, who you believe is the biggest threat, that will open up shots for Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green. So I don't believe the narrative that this is Dillon Brooks' team and Jalen Green. They're supposed to be able to get those shots because the game plan is to stop Devin Booker. That's who they're scared about having 30 points, 25 points, 40 points, because that changes the whole trajectory of a game. Defensively, I thought Phoenix was doing as best as they could throughout this series, especially the last 2 games, but it's the scoring that they're missing. You have to have a few more extra points there to put you in a position to win this game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they just haven't been able to really pull that away. If you look at quarter by quarter, the points are not that far off. I mean, Phoenix is right there, and they're just not able to get over that hump in these games. And honestly, I think it's too late for them to do it. Now, again, like we just saw with the Houston Rockets, nobody wants to get swept. So I expect a lot of pride, a lot of energy from Phoenix. I expect that Devin Booker is going to come out guns blazing. I think this is going to be a game where he's going to be super, ultra aggressive and competitive, and he's going to have a better stat line in this game. And he has to for them to be able to extend this and make a game 5 situation where you're heading back to Oklahoma City City with a little bit of hope. Dylan Brooks said that he's going to be more on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as he's been throughout the series, that he will try to make him less efficient as he was in Game 3. Easier said than done, as we've seen. But again, I do believe that this is a sweep, that this series is over. But I hope that I'm wrong. I hope Phoenix comes out, they fight, they show some pride, and they go out there and do what they got to do. While we're talking about showing pride, we do have another series in the Western Conference right now, and that is the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. The Minnesota Timberwolves are leading the series against the Denver Nuggets 3-1. They are now on the brink of elimination, and I have been shocked at what I've been seeing by the Denver Nuggets, but I've been super impressed by what I've seen from the Minnesota Timberwolves. After Game 1, I will admit how the Denver Nuggets played. I said, okay, it looks like the Timberwolves are not prepared. They're not ready. They're not running an offense. Their defense isn't being aggressive. It looks like this is going to be the series for Denver. And after Game 1, Minnesota and Chris Finch have done exactly what they've wanted to do in Game 2, 3, and now 4, where they have dominated in their offense, and that is attacking the basket and putting them all in really bad situations. When you have Jaden McDaniels after Game 2 in this series say they are all bad defenders, and named the Denver Nuggets by name, named Nikola Jokic, named Jamal Murray. And Jaden McDaniels is an elite defender, one of the best defenders for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So if an elite defender is saying that the other team has bad defenders, you actually got to take him at his word. And a little bit of me felt like that was a mental game that he played with them, because in Game 3, they tried to be super aggressive defensively on the ball and tried to blitz, and they weren't quick enough in their defensive rotations, and the Minnesota Timberwolves just took advantage of it. Then you go into Game 4, and you expect to see that Denver's going to have a little bit more fight, but the thing about the Denver Nuggets is that offensively, the team as a whole is not producing. It's not just a few guys or just Joker and Jamal Murray. The whole team is struggling. They're not really getting a lot of shots. Cam Johnson isn't really performing at what they need him to be as a perimeter shooter. You're looking at Tim Hardaway Jr. He's not performing from the perimeter. Christian Brown at times is struggling. The team itself is struggling defensively and offensively. But this is what I will say about the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are the better team in this series once they figured out that, hey, we can have whatever we want at the basket. And they have enough quick athletic players to be able to neutralize those things. The Minnesota Timberwolves are at their best when they're not jacking up threes and not running any sets. When they run their offense, when they sit there and really go downhill, they are so effective. But I will say this, moving forward in the playoffs, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Minnesota Timberwolves. In Game 4, yes, they won, but they did lose Dante DiVincenzo, their leader, another scorer for them, and also a very good defender. He did rupture his Achilles tendon in the game, early in the game. And then right after that, the Minnesota Timberwolves did lose Anthony Edwards. He hyperextended coming down. He is going to be out multiple weeks with a bone bruise. So they've now lost two key players. And I think in Game 4, that's why I'm looking at Denver a little bit different, because without two key players, you still cannot beat them. And that is a problem. And I recently spoke about how Nikola Jokic, if we're going to put him at this pedestal, if we're going to talk about how great he is, we have to be able to criticize bad performances. We have to be able to say, hey, he's not performing like the MVP that we all know and love. We have to call that out, because there is no excuse that the Denver Nuggets could not win a game without Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo. There is no excuse for that Ayo Dosunmu off the bench drops 43 points in Game 4, and you still have no answer for it. And before someone says, well, it's the Denver Nuggets, it's not just Nikola Jokic. He's doing the best he can, and he's dealing with injury. We can't come up with excuses. We're not going to do that, because if you're going to sit there and say someone is the best in the world, that they are the guy, you have to also hold them to that standard, because what we've seen in the past, superstars in Nikola Jokic position, if they were having bad performances where they're shooting 2 for 16 from the field in 3 fourth quarter games now, you're going to sit there and say something about it. You're going to sit there and say, hey, that's not affecting winning. If you sit there and watch these games and see how he's defending, they are attacking him. He's getting smoked even in the pick and roll, high pick and roll. He's not retreating back. At times he's in drop coverage, and they're still attacking the basket. We can't sit here and put him on this pedestal and say he is exempt from criticism. Doesn't take away that he's a 3-time MVP winner. Doesn't take away that he has one championship. I get all those things, and those are great. But what we've seen from Nikola Jokic in this series has been underwhelming. He has not been the best player on the floor. Now, I know someone's going to sit there and say, well, what's the problem? He's still dropping really good points. And I understand your argument. You see 24, 27, 24 points. Game 1, he had 25. And you say, man, he has to be playing pretty good. But the last 3 games, you're dropping 24, 27, and 25, and you've lost all 3. So what does that tell you? You can't be that good then. He's shooting 33% from the field. He is not playing well, and that's a lot of credit to Rudy Gobert. We sit there and we get on Rudy all the time. As a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, at times, I think the last few years, he has been not as aggressive as we've seen. Rudy Gobert is playing with a sense of pride in this series that he will not be punked by Nikola Jokic. And he is getting the best of Nikola Jokic. I'm talking about Rudy Gobert is playing him one-on-one. He's sitting there, hey, I'm here. You want to go to the paint? We can bang in the paint. You want to catch the ball at the perimeter? I'm here too. Nikola Jokic isn't even shooting the ball well from 3. That's a problem when he's not able to generate his own 3-point percentage. He's only shooting 15% from the 3 in the last 3 games that they've lost. If the Denver Nuggets want any chance to advance out of the first round, Nikola Jokic is going to have to play better. It is not acceptable that you're going 2 for 16 in the fourth quarter in the last 3 games. Those are clutch time moments. Those are closer moments. But then at the end of the game, you lose and you want to run down the court because Jaden McDaniels laid the ball up with 1.3 seconds left and everybody's up in arms about an unwritten rule that somebody made up. You don't have to sit there and abide by an unwritten rule. Who said that? Who made that up? At the end of the day, if you didn't want him to score, you should have won. But sitting there and running faster than you did all game to go try to say something to Jaden McDaniels, then he hemmed you up. So you ran down there to sit there and what? Say you had a problem with it? And nothing came from it. You still lost. You're now still down 3-1. You're in an elimination game, and you're worried about him laying the ball up over an unwritten rule? Spare me. Then you got the Denver Nuggets coach talking about that's just who Jaden McDaniels is. It's not a character flaw what he did. It's a rivalry. We're in the playoffs. Everybody said y'all were going to beat us after game 1. We've now beaten you 3 in a row. It's 3-1. It is what it is. You couldn't beat us without 2 of our best players. What does that say about you? Because Jaden McDaniels laying the ball up with 1.3 seconds doesn't say much about him. But you running down there acting how Nikola Jokic acted, that's being a sore loser. And at the end of the day, we're looking at the stats. We see you. And I want Joker to show, hey, I'm a 3-time MVP. I'm not going to let Rudy Gobert keep getting the best of me. I'm going to be better. He looks a little bit that this series is flustering him. The defense is flustering him. He's not moving well. He's not getting up the court well. The effort is the question offensively and defensively. And I know Jamal Murray has to be better. All the people on the Denver Nuggets team have to be better, but he is still the star. I think they're getting out-coached. I think there are so many problems with the Denver Nuggets right now, but I will not allow that to be an excuse that Nikola Jokic, who a lot of people believe is the best player in the league, is about to get a gentleman's sweep in the first round. You just can't gloss over that. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. So for the Denver Nuggets, you got to handle your business. Game 5, this is it. This is an elimination game for you. Minnesota still does not have Anthony Edwards. You have to go out there and have some pride, have some aggression, win this game, get this series to 3-2, and really make this something that can be for you to take. And Nikola Jokic has to play better. It's simple as that. While we're talking about handling business in 3-1 series, we have one more series in the Western Conference, and that is the San Antonio Spurs and the Portland Trail Blazers. The San Antonio Spurs are leading the series against the Portland Trail Blazers 3-1. And if you ask me, this series is over. I do not have the Portland Trail Blazers coming back in this series, and that San Antonio will end this in Game 5, which is the hardest game to win, an elimination game, as we've talked about in other series. What I've seen from the San Antonio Spurs is that they do look like the best team in the West. That is no disrespect to the number 1 overall seed, the OKC Thunder, but the San Antonio Spurs with the number 2 seed are also one of the only teams to have have beaten the OKC Thunder multiple times throughout the regular season because they kind of mirror each other in a few ways. But I think defensively, San Antonio this year might be a little bit better than the OKC Thunder defense that they have this year. But what I'm seeing from the Portland Trailblazers, which I think we all wanted to see, was that aggressiveness. How was Portland going to react and respond to the defensive efforts of Stephon Castle and how the San Antonio Spurs like to play? And we've seen in this series, the biggest question was, what do the Spurs look like without Wemby? What happens if he gets injured and he can't play? And that question was answered very quickly in this series because we did not see Wemby play in Game 3. He suffered a concussion in Game 2, and because he was under concussion protocol, he ended up sitting in Game 3. In Game 2, the Portland Trailblazers were able to take advantage of that, and they won in the final seconds of the game. In Game 3, Wemby was not available, and that's what everyone wanted to see. Who's going to step up for this team? De'Aaron Fox played great, but Dylan Harper coming off the bench and having the performance that he had was really the part where everybody was like, oh, wait a minute. They have enough to win games. If something was to happen to Wemby, you don't want that to happen because you know you're a better team with him out there. But they have enough to man the ship if something was to happen. And we saw that in Game 3, and then we saw it when he came back in Game 4. But Game 3, I think, said a lot about the Spurs. Dylan Harper had such a great performance. Stephon Castle had a great performance. They have the veteran in De'Aaron Fox. They have Keldon Johnson coming off the bench. They have enough depth that even without Wemby being out there, it didn't affect them that much. And I think that was a win that they needed for themselves as well, to say, hey, we're okay. We want him out here because we're better, but we can also man the ship if something was to happen and he has to be out for an extended period of time. The Portland Trailblazers did not take advantage of the fact that, hey, Wemby's not out here. That's a defensive presence. I mean, this is a unanimous defensive player of the year, the first time we've ever had a unanimous defensive player of the year. And that opens up the basket, the rim. And they weren't really able to affect that much and take advantage of that. I thought throughout the game they were trying to, but they just really couldn't land the last punch, or they couldn't get enough defensive stops. You then get to Game 4. Wemby is now available. And in that first half, the San Antonio Spurs were not playing well. They were playing a little bit with no effort. They were a little bit lazy on certain sets that they were running offensively. They were forcing shots, playing one-on-one. And that's not really the San Antonio Spurs philosophy or strategy. They're a team that believes in passing the ball. They believe in cutting. They believe in moving. They believe in going to the post if Wemby is ready for the ball. They love alleys. They love getting out in transition. They weren't playing like that in the first half. They get to the second half and they just completely flipped the switch. They went right back to the Spurs that we have seen throughout the season, methodical, having discipline, strategic, and Wemby just started to take over. And then you see the performance that they had in Game 4, where there was really no answer that the Portland Trailblazers had. I give a lot of credit to Portland because they are trying their best. They are out there doing as best as they can. You can never say that Avia is not trying to put on a performance and put the team on his back. Drew Holiday's out there doing what he's trying to do. Scoot Henderson is trying to perform, but it's just not enough. It's not enough for the San Antonio Spurs. Right now, they are a well-oiled machine. De'Aaron Fox said after Game 4, they knew exactly what they needed to change from that first half to the second half. When you hear that from teams, oh, we know it was nothing that they were doing. It was just us not executing our game plan, not playing Spurs brand of basketball. That's scary because that means nobody could really stop us. We're the only ones in our own way. And you saw in the second half, they flipped that switch and got right back to what they needed to do. They're now up 3-1 in this series. I expect this series to be over in Game 5. Gentleman's sweep for Portland. I hope Portland is at least able to fight back a little bit, as we've talked about throughout the multiple series that are now at 3-1 and 3-0, that we want to see a competitive series. But for some of these teams, it's just too much and too great for the other team to be able to really come back. And can you win 3 straight? That's always going to be the question. Being 3-1 is one thing, but can you win 3 more to end up winning this series? Can you even win 2 more to force a Game 7? I do not see that for the Portland Trailblazers. I think that they put up an incredible fight throughout this series. I will say this about the Western Conference, which I think the winner of the NBA Finals will be in the West, because there is so much depth and strength in these teams, but there are some glaring teams that are just overall better than everyone else. The crazy thing about the Western Conference is that if a few teams would have lost a few more games at the end of the season, we are looking at a completely different stack of series. We're talking about teams would have been all different. Truly, if you look back at the 3 and the 4 seed, the Denver Nuggets, the 3 seed, the Lakers, the 4 seed, if the Denver Nuggets would have been the 4 seed, they would have been playing the Houston Rockets. And you will not convince me that Denver wouldn't have beaten Houston. And if that's the case, the Lakers would have had the 3 seed, and guess what? They would have been playing the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think if that was the series, I'd be giving that credit to the Minnesota Timberwolves. You then see how that stacks up on who would be playing next in the conference semifinals. You have to meet with a San Antonio Spurs or an Oklahoma City Thunder. The series in the West was truly so little by the margins that if a few more losses would have happened, teams would have had a completely different matchup. But it looks like this is working out in the favor of the teams that are taking advantage of what they are seeing right now. Like we said, in the Western Conference, we have Thunder Suns. OKC leads that series 3-0. Lakers Rockets, they are in the driver's seat at 3-1. The Lakers, Nuggets, Timberwolves, Minnesota leads that series 3-1 as well. And the Spurs Trailblazers with San Antonio leading 3-1. As my Western Conference predictions, the Oklahoma City Thunder will be advancing to the conference semifinals where they will play the Los Angeles Lakers. Then the Minnesota Timberwolves will be beating the Denver Nuggets. That's even without Anthony Edwards, and they will be advancing to the conference semifinals where they will await to play the San Antonio Spurs. Once we get through the semifinals, I'll then give you my predictions for the Western Conference Finals. But since we're done with the West, let's head out to the East. In the Eastern Conference, the number 1 overall seed is the Detroit Pistons, and they are not leading their series against the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic are leading the series against the Pistons 2-1, and Game 4 is approaching, where I do expect that the Detroit Pistons will win Game 4 and the series will be tied. I'm going to tell you right now, I have the Pistons coming back and being able to take control of this series and win this series. But I will say this about the Detroit Pistons. They will not be making it to the NBA Finals this year. So, sorry, Pistons fans. I'm going to tell you why, though. All hope is not lost. They are going through what I call the young playoff wall, and the OKC Thunder went through the same thing in 2024. You have your young superstar who can score at will. In this case, it's Cade Cunningham. And the questions will linger about the team. Do you have depth? Do you have a consistent number 2 option that can score and help your number 1 option? And can anyone else on this team create their own shot? That is the problem for the Detroit Pistons. It is not their defense. It is not all these other things. What we are seeing from the Orlando Magic, a number 8 seed at that, which they are not your typical 8 seed, because what we're seeing from the Magic right now is kind of what we saw throughout the season in spurts if they were consistent and didn't deal with as many injuries as they did. The Orlando Magic are a young team. They are also one of the top defensive teams in the league. And offensively, when Jalen Suggs is hitting shots, Desmond Bane is hitting shots, when you got Anthony Black coming in and giving you great minutes, but when you have Banchero going out there and being the number 1 option, using his size, his athleticism, being the aggressor, defensively, what we're seeing from Wendell Carter Jr., the Orlando Magic are almost a mirror of the Pistons if they were consistent and disciplined. But because they are taking the fight to the Pistons and are really making it hard for them, what we're seeing is the Detroit Pistons struggling. The struggle for the Pistons is not necessarily defensively. It's aggressiveness, one, and that their second option is nowhere to be found right now, which is Jalen Duren. He's nowhere right now. And for the Detroit Pistons, they can't afford that. Not in a series like this. Cade Cunningham could go out there and give you 30, 40 points, but none of that really matters if your number 2 option cannot produce. Jalen Duren was averaging over 19.5 points during the regular season, 10.5 rebounds, and shooting 65%. You then now go into the playoffs and he's averaging 9 points. 8 rebounds and shooting 41%. That's a big drop off. When you're looking at these stats and he's going 8 for 9, 11-9, 8-7, which is he's only scoring over 11 points right now in terms of what we've seen in the last 3 games. And his rebounds are not in double digits. He's not being aggressive on defense. He looks like a shell of himself. This is what I talk about, the young playoff wall. If your number 2 option is not consistent, if they are not aggressive in the playoffs, it will not matter what your number 1 option does. The other problem for them is that they don't have anyone else on the team that can actually create shots. This is something that the Pistons struggled with throughout the season, but I think people kind of glossed over it because you thought that they were going to be able to figure it out. The second half of the season, you saw this become a problem, and you really saw it when Cade Cunningham went down with the collapsed lung. You started to say, who else is going to be able to score for them? And they also were still struggling a little little bit offensively. The thing about the Pistons is if Asar Thompson had a consistent jump shot, we are talking about a completely different series or a completely different team. He played well, but he's also anchored with being one of the best defenders for the Pistons. That's asking a lot of someone who still has to use their athleticism and quickness to get to the basket and not necessarily can create his own shot. It's a lot to ask of Tobias Harris, the veteran, to say, hey, we need you to go out there because the number 2 option is struggling and our number 1 option is doing the best that he can, but he's also struggling. Cade Cunningham is truly not playing bad, but he's not playing great. In game 3, he had over 27 points, 5 rebounds, but that's not the stat that I'm looking at. I'm looking at how he shot, which was 8 for 23. That means that he had to work to get these shots. He had to also facilitate. He is their point guard. He is who the offense runs through, but he's also trying to get everyone involved, and that's hard to do when nobody else is producing. I'm not saying that the Pistons do not have the team to do it. Again, I have them getting out of this first round if they could get it together, but it's going to be terrifying if they do not win game 4. If the Orlando Magic go up 3-1 in this series, that is something, one, that I wouldn't have expected, but that's gonna be a tall task for the Pistons because they are also a young team playing with house money. There were no expectations for them. Like they said in the press conference, they looked at the playoffs as a clean slate. This is a whole new season for us. They had to fight to get their way in there, and what we're seeing from them is a team that is playing with a ton of confidence. When you look at Banchero dropping 25 points, Franz giving you 17 points, Wendell Carter Jr. giving you 14 points and 17 rebounds, Desmond Bane giving you 25, Jalen Suggs giving you 15. That's a lot of points. That means everybody is playing well. But when you look at the Detroit Pistons, Tobias Harris had 23 points in game 3. Cade Cunningham had 27 points. You had Asar Thompson who had 17. Jalen Duren had 8. That's the problem right there. You can't have one person drop off like that, and then they're getting no help from their bench. Nobody on the bench for the Pistons right now is going to be able to come in and give them double digits. That is the problem. And if you're the Detroit Pistons, it shouldn't take losses to want you to play your brand of basketball. That shouldn't be the case, especially as the number 1 seed. There should be a sense of dominance. But right now, the Pistons are going through that young playoff wall. I believe it's exactly like the 2024 Oklahoma City Thunder when they had to face the Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving when it was time to try to punch their ticket to the Western Conference Finals. And guess what? They lost. And what did they do the next year? They ended up Jalen Williams really became a consistent number 2 scorer. Chet Holmgren got healthy, started playing better, more aggressive, had more muscle on him. But guess what they did? They went and got a veteran who knew how to win. Alex Caruso changed everything for him. What did we see after that? 2025, they win it all. It's the same thing I'm seeing from the Pistons. This is not the year that they will be in the NBA Finals. But if they take away what is the problem now, they could do the same thing OKC did, which is, one, a consistent number 2 option. If it's going to be Jalen Duren, you got to tell him that in the offseason. Hey, this is what we need from you. If that's not the case, you need to go trade and get you one. You got to get you a consistent number 2. Asar Thompson has to get a jump shot to become a consistent number 3 option. He unlocks so much for them, but they also have to develop their bench. If you're not going to develop the guys that you have on that bench, you need to go get some. And you're going to have to get a veteran that has won before and can show you how to win. But right now, the Pistons have a game 4. I do believe that they will win. I do believe that this series will be 2-2, and then the series is really going to get started for them. But I'm not going to count the Orlando Magic out because they deserve a lot of respect for what they're doing, and I'm sure they're ready to go ahead and get this series to 3-1. While we're talking about a potential tie in that series, there are a few series that are 2-2 right now and could go either way in the next game 5 that they both will have. First, we're going to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers against the Toronto Raptors. The Cleveland Cavaliers-Toronto Raptors series is tied 2-2 right now with Game 5 approaching. My prediction for Game 5 is that the Cavaliers will win. The series will then be 3-2. I then believe that they'll go back to Toronto. Toronto will win, and that we will be having a Game 7. I didn't have a lot of faith in the Cavaliers, but I at least had faith that they were going to be able to get out the first round. But now I see why I did not have complete faith in them, and I've teetered on the line with the Cavaliers for quite some time in the playoffs. Good regular season team, they win games, they perform, but when the playoffs come, I don't know if the lights be too bright or they just don't have enough. And I question their identity and their culture. They're not a team that I look at and say defensively, they're aggressive. They're going to get to it. They're going to get stops. I don't think that. Offensively, I say they have Donovan Mitchell. He's going to be consistent. Donovan Mitchell can score in his sleep. He can have 30, 40 points, and they can still lose. They now have James Harden, who is there to facilitate, be a point guard, and really be able to help that offense, but it doesn't help if James Harden is going to have turnovers. What I'm seeing from the Toronto Raptors is that they are taking advantage of the fact that they are a defensive-minded team that has size and length, and they could trust their players to defend on the perimeter, on the ball, off the ball, but also in the paint. There's a little bit of just aggressiveness to them, especially when you look at their bench. There's a one part in the game, in game 4, where the Toronto Raptors force a turnover, and it's all with Jamal Shead coming off of the bench and giving a defensive presence in being able to get a turnover that led to the Toronto Raptors getting another chance and really being able to close this game out. When you look at Scotty Barnes and he gives you 23 points, Brandon Ingram, who is so important to this series, giving you 23 points, that is so important. RJ Barrett giving you 18. They have enough to score. They also have enough to get stops. And that's what we're seeing right now in this series, where the Cavaliers should be a little bit worried. Both teams didn't shoot that great in this game. 36% for the Cavs, 32% for the Raptors. From three-point percentage, really not that big of a drop-off. 25% for the Cavs, 13% for the Raptors. But when you start to look at the turnovers margin, Cavaliers had 17 to the Raptors 11, and that's all because of the Toronto Raptors defense. The rebounds, pretty much even. 56 for the Cavs, 59 for the Raptors. It's such a small margin as to why teams will win games. And for the Toronto Raptors, it's forcing turnovers against the Cavaliers. But the thing that will also stand out to you, points in the paint. The Raptors had 50 points in the paint to the Cavs 38. So that means that the Cleveland Cavaliers couldn't defend the paint. They also had turnovers, which is credit to the Raptors defense. Two things that will win you games. But the thing that really stands out to me, Evan Mobley, 8 points. You're not going to win many games like that. Jared Allen, 3 points. James Harden had 19 points, which is great, but guess what? He also had 7 turnovers. Donovan Mitchell had 20 points. He also had 4 turnovers. There's nothing anyone else is contributing to in this game for the Cavaliers. And if everybody's not going to be along for the ride, you're not going to win this series at all, which they were the favorites to win. It gets to the point with the Cavaliers, when do you start saying, maybe we need to rebuild this whole thing? They traded away Darius Garland. You get James Harden because you believe that is what you needed for the playoffs. It's obvious that they don't want to trade Donovan Mitchell. But when do we start having conversations about Jared Allen? When do we have conversations about Evan Mobley? When do we start having conversations about a few more players? Because these are now consecutive playoff disappointments if you lose. And right now, you are not in control of this series whatsoever. And after this series, whoever advances, they will be potentially playing the Pistons or the Magic. And what we're seeing right now from both teams, I would give credit to the team that's in the Pistons in the Magic series to beat whoever wins the Cavaliers-Raptors series. So I'm interested to see how the Cavaliers respond to that loss going into Game 5, trying to get a 3-2 lead in this series. Or if the Raptors will say, hey, nah, we want that 3-2 because we want to go back home in Game 6 and go ahead and close it out. Now, they're not the only team tied 2-2 in the Eastern Conference. The New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks are also tied 2-2. The Atlanta Hawks-New York Knicks series is tied 2-2 right now, with the New York Knicks winning Game 4 to tie the series. I am more confident now in my prediction that this series was going to go 7 and that the Hawks were going to surprise a lot of people. I do believe the Hawks will win this series now. And that's no offense to the Knicks. What I'm seeing from the Knicks is something that I think we've all seen also throughout the season, which is the inconsistencies in offense. Questions about Mike Brown and his adjustments in this series, where I think the Hawks and Quinn Snyder have adjusted quicker. In Game 4, the Knicks finally decided, hey, the guy that we need to feed the most is Karl Anthony Towns, because guess what? He's been the most consistent throughout this entire series, but they refused to give him the ball. They would rather go isolation and let Jalen Brunson dribble the life out of the ball and get a very heavily contested shot. Game 4, they said, hey, we're going to let the big man cook. What do you get from Karl Anthony Towns? 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, a whole triple-double. What do you get from OG Anunoby? 22 points and 10 rebounds, a double-double. Finally, Josh Hart comes to the party, gives you 10 points. You're still not getting anything from Mikal Bridges, but at least somebody else came along for the ride this time. Oh, and they played Deuce McBride some more. He gave you 11 points off the bench. For the New York Knicks, this is what we wanted to see. Their offense was not stuck. It was not one-sided. They started finally getting everyone involved, but defensively, this is what they did because the Hawks have been picking on Jalen Brunson. Isolation situations, doesn't matter who's bringing the ball up. They want one-on-one with him, and they've been winning that matchup, specifically CJ McCollum. What did the Knicks do this time? They said, we're not going to let you bully our guy because we're going to bring a blitz, and it's going to be our other better defender, which is OG Anunoby, and we're going to force you to get the ball out of your hands because we trust that OG Anunoby can recover and go and retreat back to his original defender. That is what they started doing. And because of that, it worked. The blitz, especially in the half court, really did affect the Atlanta Hawks because it forced CJ McCollum to get rid of the ball. They started having more on-ball pressure, picking him up full court, having him have to think and work to get across and then get the offense going. That's a lot to do. So I was impressed that the Knicks made their adjustments defensively and offensively, but can they do that again? What I've known to be true about the Knicks, they could do something good one time, and then they'll go back to their old habits the next time. Because all you wanted is to make sure that this wasn't a 3-1 situation. Now it's 2-2. You go back to New York. You feel like now you got the momentum back on your side, and the Garden is going to be rocking to help them and propel them. But the thing is, the Hawks already won a game in New York. So they understand what to expect. They already saw what it can be and what that looks like, even if they're trailing in a game, to still stay in it. Something that the Hawks said that was interesting to me, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker said it, that CJ McCollum told them after game 4 that no one even expected them to be in this situation. So if anything, they're playing with house money. All they have to do is keep adjusting, keep the course of the series, and trust what they've been able to do in the games that they've won. Because the Hawks didn't win fluky games. It's not like they got lucky on the last second shot, all these things. These were actual executions and strategies and sets that are being run offensively, them and their defensive presence that has helped them. And they can trust that that can win them another game and win them multiple games to be able to extend this series or win this series. The thing about the Hawks is that you just got to go back to what has been working. They now see how the New York Knicks are going to play them defensively with that half-court blitz. Now you might have to get CJ McCollum off the ball. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to have a big game for them, and 15 points in game 4, which was big, but he's going to have to really show up now in game 5. CJ McCollum is going to be CJ McCollum. Jalen Johnson is going to keep going. He has 14 points. Dyson Daniels is going to have to give them a little bit more offensively. But because he's working so hard defensively, picking up Jalen Brunson and being the aggravator and agitator, that's already a tall task and assignment. But he's going to have to give them a little bit more offensively. The one person that they still cannot account for is Jonathan Kuminga. And I expect his minutes to increase more in this series, especially seeing that in game 4, the Knicks still didn't have an answer for him, just like they didn't have an answer for him in game 3. So I expect him to have a big game 5. I expect him to have a big game 5, Nickeil Alexander-Walker to have a big game 5, and I do think Dyson Daniels is going to surprise a lot of people and at least have 15 points in this game. The Hawks are still okay. I'm with them on that. No one expected them to even have this series tied 2-2 and had the opportunity to go 3-1 back to New York. You won in New York already. Stay the course. Make the adjustments. I am giving the Hawks this series. I do not believe that the Knicks will be able to consistently play as well as they did in game 4. And if that's the case, there's going to be a lot of conversations about if Mike Brown is still going to be the coach. Now, one team that's not worried about who's going to be their coach next year, even if they were to lose the series, which they're not, it is the Boston Celtics, because they are facing off against the 76ers in their series. The Boston Celtics are leading the series against the Philadelphia 76ers 3-1, and I have the Boston Celtics going to the NBA Finals. They are my favorites to get out of the East. They are the number 2 overall seed, and this team looks good. The Boston Celtics look like a very well-oiled machine, what we expected. Joe Mazzulla, who is in Coach of the Year conversations, and with them having Jason Tatum back, it just changes everything for them, and it's Jason Tatum looking like the Jason Tatum that we all know and love. But I think the one thing that I appreciate about what I've seen from JT so far in his return is that his assists I think, have skyrocketed in his ability to really see the court even more. He's really in a facilitator role at times, and it really is to their benefit because he's still also able to score. He gave them 30 points in game 4. He played a big factor in game 3 when the game started to slip away from them a little bit, and he had that dagger 3. Jaylen Brown gave them 20 points. A few of their starters have struggled, Derek White being one, but guess what they had off of the bench? They got Peyton Pritchard giving them 32. If you got somebody off the bench giving you 32 points and the rest of your bench is also giving you good defensive minutes, they're rebounding and at least giving you something, you're going to win majority of your games, and that's what they did in game 4. For the 76ers, I thought that they were going to be a little bit better in this series without Joel Embiid being able to play faster, playing through VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey. But Joel Embiid did return to the lineup in game 4. He had emergency surgery, and everyone wanted to see what they were going to look like. I thought they played a little bit slower with him back personally, but it's still Joel Embiid, and he had a presence in the paint. He was getting a lot of people in foul trouble for the Boston Celtics, and he had 26 points and 10 rebounds. He did play 34 minutes. That is a lot of minutes for a guy that hasn't played for a few weeks now, but he was out there trying his best. Paul George had 16 points. Tyrese Maxey had 22. VJ Edgecombe only had 6 points in this game, and really no one else was able to produce for them. Kelly Oubre had 2 points, and then they had 12 points off the bench from Quentin Grimes. It has to be a collective effort for the 76ers. If you want to extend this series and try to get a hold of it, everyone else has to come along now. With Joel Embiid now back in the lineup, you got some more points, you have a defensive presence, but you can't have a bad game from Kelly Oubre as well. You can't have a bad game from Paul George. You can't have a bad game from VJ Edgecombe either. And you have to have more great minutes from the bench. If you're the 76ers, you are in trouble right now. And if you're the Boston Celtics, you're trying to go ahead and close this thing on out in game 5. Go ahead and get some rest and recovery and get ready for the next round. For the Boston Celtics, this team is looking very dominant, and I want to say they look very dominant because I think this is the best bench that they've had in the last couple of years. This bench has a lot of dynamics to it. They have scorers, they have perimeter scorers, they have ball handlers, they have a facilitator, but they're aggressive. That second unit is feisty, they're aggressive on defense, they understand their roles, and they have developed into them, and they look like one of the best teams in the league right now, especially when you got Jason Tatum coming into playoff form already. So the Boston Celtics, I do believe, will be closing this entire series out in game 5. It will be a nice little gentleman's sweep. I'll tell you my predictions right now. So I have the Pistons coming back and beating the Orlando Magic. They'll then wait to face off against the winner of the Cavaliers Raptors series, and I'm going to give it to the Cavaliers. So I have the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers facing off in the conference semifinals. I have the Atlanta Hawks advancing over the New York Knicks, and that they will be facing off against the Boston Celtics in the conference semifinals. And from there, I'll then tell you who I have advancing from the semifinals to the conference finals. But that's who I have right now. The Pistons will win their series, Cavs will win their series, Hawks will win theirs, and the Boston Celtics will be winning. So get ready, continue watching the NBA playoffs. It's about to really get real after this first round, and this is where the fun starts to get going. But let me know who you have winning. If you thought I was wrong about a few teams, how you see some of the series shaking out. Remember to send me a voicemail with those takes on the NBA playoffs on speakpipe.com/the Lachelle Show. You can also find that link in all my social media platforms. So let me know who you got in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, and make sure that you're letting me know who you think is going to win it all. This was another week of the Lachelle Show, the NBA Playoffs Round 1 episode special. I will always express my gratitude to everyone that takes time out of their busy day, their schedules, their lives to listen to the Lachelle Show. If you listen to me on your way to work, from work, in the gym, while you're cleaning the house, running errands, I'm so thankful. I thank you so much. I hope that my gratitude for you listening never goes unnoticed. Remember to like, comment, subscribe wherever you listen listen to the podcast. If you listen in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, make sure that you're hitting follow and making sure that you're commenting on the episodes as well. Make sure you leave some ratings and reviews for me. I would love that. Make sure that you also share the podcast with all your friends. If you're trying to tell somebody why you think the Detroit Pistons are coming back, if you're trying to convince somebody why the Celtics are going to win it all, go ahead and share them to the podcast. Let them know what I've also said about those teams. If you did not hear me at the beginning, I'll talk more on the NFL draft next episode. Remember to also leave me a voicemail. Hot takes, opinions, questions, reactions. Speakpipe.com, the Lachelle Show. I want to hear from you guys. The hotline is one of my most favorite parts of the show, and I love hearing from you guys more than I like hearing from myself. So remember to interact with that. Thank you guys for another episode, another week of the Lachelle Show, and you will be hearing from me next week.